Hello, everyone, and welcome to Dead Talk, where we do a deep dive into the anthology series, The Dead of Night. I'm here with Episode 5 director, Mitchell Cummings. Hi, Mitchell. How's it going?
Good. How are you?
Good. Your episode is titled So Sorry.
Yes, sir.
I think it is probably the weirdest one we have here.
That was kind of what I was aiming for, yeah.
So I need you to explain yourself.
Well, I really like cosmic horror. I don't know if we can do Lovecrafting anymore, but very much Lovecrafting. And I wanted to bring that to this episode. Everybody else was doing like serial killers and stalkers and different whatnot. And I was like, I really want some tentacles, you know? So, yeah.
So yeah, whenever it starts, I'm just like, oh, this is different. Mm-hmm. It's very different. Like I said, you have this distinction of probably being the weirdest one.
Oh, thank you.
So
that's usually me and my friend groups, so it works.
Yeah. My favorite part of yours is the trash bag gag. Mm-hmm. Like, how'd you guys do that?
So that one was interesting, and we had some odd ways of going about that. At first, I had a friend actually tell me about, I believe it's called midget wrestling here in Corpus, and I haven't been. But we actually had talked about going and recruiting somebody from there to see if they could do it. I know. It's the weird things about film, you know. You find you're in some areas and you have to make some choice decisions. But it ended up being my cousin's girlfriend at the time. And she was game to do it, never been on set, and it worked out really well. We didn't think we'd use the bag as much as we did, but because it just looked so creepy, we kept going with it.
So she got in the bag?
Oh, yeah. She persevered. Oh, yeah. She was about it.
Yeah, that was that was just great. Every time it would show up, I'm like, how the fuck is he doing that? You know? But okay. Was she in it the whole time? Every time you...
So what would happen is we would, because that's one thing that was good about Dead Night, was we were very much about being vocal, talking everything through, making sure everybody was comfortable. Because we've all been on sets where it just isn't talked about. There's nobody there to really wrangle everybody. And so stuff happens, right? And so we were very thorough about that. So we told her whenever we're going to do it, okay, how do you feel? And then she'd go into the bag. We get it all set up. The scene where we're in the hallway, actually, that I believe was a mix of our crew, but I want to say it was mostly Renee. And he would push her feet out into the hallway, and she'd push off of him, and she would come out in the hallway. So we did some really interesting tricks for that.
Yeah. How did you get involved with the anthology?
Honestly, through Jake Gonzalez, the DP. He and I had worked on some gigs prior, and Jacob Graham I knew from... Let's see, Jacob and I had worked on, I can't remember the first thing we worked on. It was CC 7 Day for Jimmy Wilden and Chris Thompson. It was for, at that time, it was called In Waves. I think it was called In Waves. But it was a short film we did for CC 7 Day. Met Jacob there, and then Jake called me down the road and he was like, hey, Jacob wants to do this thing with a bunch of local filmmakers. Would you be interested? I was living in Orange Grove at the time, so that was kind of my only way to kind of mess around with film and stuff. I was like, of course. So we had this meeting at Taps, I believe it was, and it was kind of like that Pixar moment where we all sat around with our napkins and our cocktails, and we wrote off all the Pixar animation movies that would be coming out. And then Jacob was like, hey, you know, if we can work together, be a community, be a tribe, we can make this happen. You know, are you in? I can only do this if you're willing to do this. And I will give him, he started it off. The first episode was his episode, Meet the Family, and he showed us. You know, it was kind of like a Roger Corman thing. He showed us what to do, how to get into it. And we're all like, okay, this is doable. You know, he got his hands dirty, so we were all willing to get our hands dirty. And it went from there.
Yeah, that was, speaking with Jacob, that was one of the things that I found so, I guess, amazing about this anthology is that it got local filmmakers to show up and not only direct, but to help behind the scenes and behind the cameras and stuff. Have you ever worked like that with like a steady group of people?
No. At that time, it was mostly independent, like mom and pop commercials for Corpus. Worked with Gerald Flores, Tuxedo Goose Productions. A little bit at that time with Hector of Nightstorm Productions. Mm-hmm. So it was small stuff like that, most of the commercial work. So this was the first time that I got to work narrative, which, I mean, that's where I think most of us want to go. And to have that kind of community was new because everybody wanted it.
Yeah.
Usually on a commercial gig, everybody's there just to get their paycheck and go.
Yeah.
You know? And here we were working, and sometimes it was too hot, it was too cold, and yet we're all going, give me more. You know? So
Okay.
it was good.
Who are your filmmaker inspirations?
It just depends on the week.
Yeah.
Honestly. You know, coming up, Tarantino, of course, and then after a while it was Rodriguez. I liked Rodriguez's ability to make things very handmade and just do it himself and figure it out, and I really admired that. I think it was at that meeting we had. I want to say it was in January. Ooh, I can't remember if it was 2021, 2022, something like that. But we all were like, what's the movie that made you feel like you could make a movie? And everybody had their different movies, and I was like, Sharknado. Because, I mean, it did well. And so that was kind of the threshold for, okay, you can make a movie. You know? And then you have Jacob here going, I've made movies. I know we can make movies. But in terms of favorite director, it just depends. Sometimes it's Christopher Nolan. Sometimes it's David Fincher. Just depends on the week. Ingmar Bergman, Federico Fellini. I like to be versatile with genre directors.
You came from a small town. I came from a small town.
Mm-hmm.
So in Orange Grove, did you have like people there that were trying to help you out in film? Did you have anybody that was like your emotional support for film?
Not really. I had friends in high school. They were all into film. We were all going to graduate and go to film school and that, the other. I went to architectural engineering school in Tamook, Texas A&M, Kingsville. I did that for like a year and a quarter, and I was like, this is not it. I was doing it for set design.
Oh, okay.
And I was like, no, I want to go just make movies already. So when I came back, most of those friends were already gone. And at that time, I was mostly just working and doing the whole, I'm going to be a writer, director. I'll write and figure it out. And I had a good mentor tell me, just get on set. Just get on set. Just get on set. And it was actually my brother in 2020 that he got on the set of Allison Mabe's Persuasion to act. And they were like, hey, can you be a boom op? And I was like, why not? Yeah. And from then on, I met my community, my tribe, but in Corpus. And so it just kind of kept going from there. So even if Dead of Night didn't become what it's become, I was just happy to be with the tribe.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Your location,
Mm-hmm.
It seems like a simple location,
Mm-hmm.
but I don't know what y'all did to make it look. 'Cause there's no way that it could be as big as it looks.
Yeah. Well, there was some trickery there. That's for sure. One of the inspirations for it was a little bit of David Fincher. It's specifically like Fight Club and a little bit of not Girl in the Spider's Web, but Girl with the Dragon Tattoo. So the thing that I like about Fincher is he does like really elegant things, actors, clothing, wardrobe, but in these really kind of dirty, grimy environments. And so that was kind of like, how do we get that environment? And the hardest part is, where do you get a hallway that has that feel, but also works for your crew, for lighting, for camera? Because when we started looking at hallways, the only thing we really have in this area that we were aware of at the time, maybe there's something now, was like hotels. Mm-hmm. But they're all too nice. And so we actually worked with Gerald Flores at their shop, So Bonita. Mm-hmm. And if you were to see the hallway now, you wouldn't recognize it. It looks all beautiful and has art everywhere. But Jake and the crew came together and we made it look dirty and gritty and grimy. And that is the only other piece to the whole thing that is not the apartment. The rest of that was just smart shooting, making everything look bigger and stretching everything.
Well, I was watching yours, trying to figure out the hallway stuff. Mm-hmm. And I was like, I think I know. Mm-hmm. Do I know? Mm-hmm. I don't know.
Yeah.
So good job. And now that your episode is out, how do you feel about it?
Hindsight 2020, right? So we look back and we're like, I could have done that. But I find the most empowering thing is that you made it exist. Because sometimes that's the hardest part of being a creator, is making something exist. We get so caught up on all the ideas of it that we just keep running and running in circles. So I'm grateful that I got to do it with family, and I got to make it exist. Yeah.
Are you writing anything right now?
I have written a few short stories and stuff like that, but again, the hard part about being a creative is making it exist, right? We write it, we overthink it. So that's where I am right now. It's mostly overthinking. Yeah.
All right. Do you have a place where people can see your stuff, see your work?
Right now, I have an Instagram. There isn't much on it because it's from my production company. I haven't personally made anything on that, but it's Nocturian Productions on Instagram. And that's all I really have at the moment.
All right.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Well, thank you very much. And like I said, yours was the weird one.
Well, thank you. That's what we look for.